call this meeting of the Ames Nowell Master Plan Committee to order. It's good to see everybody. I think this is the first full board meeting we've had in over 2 years, so it's nice to see everyone. The first thing we need to do, can someone take minutes for the meeting?
I could take lousy minutes.
That would be great. The second thing is we are sorely behind on approving past minutes. So I sent them out before our last meeting, basically going back to 2018. Does anyone have any questions, edits, thoughts on those? Need any more time to review?
I reviewed them before the last meeting, so.
Okay. If not, then I will take a motion to approve the minutes of the meetings as was sent out.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It is unanimous. These minutes will be printed out and brought over to the library as is required, apparently. Things you find out when you're on the charter review committee.
Yep.
So the second thing I'd like to do is, well, a couple of quick updates. First is I'm in the process of drafting a letter. It's almost done this time. A letter that I'm going to ask the town manager and chairman of the board of selectmen to send to DCR, ask them to address some critical safety needs before weather starts to get warm and bigger crowds start to go out. This is based on some feedback we received as well as some observations I made on my own. For instance, the washout area by W01, which is far side of the pond where the memorial for the fishermen was. Mm-hmm. It's the washout continues, the erosion continues. It's now 2.5 feet deep in places. I think as we heard and the fire department confirmed, there was an injury there. Someone tripped and fell and was seriously injured in that space. According to one of the rangers there who likes to tell us these things, he had a plan to fix it, but DCR said no. So we're going to suggest that no, they really, really need to at some point because it's getting very bad. The second spot is south of the spillway along the Beaver Brook. There are 2 deadfall trees leaning on things. These are areas where people are able to kind of walk around, kids particularly. These things that really should be taken down pretty soon. There are also a number of other deadfall trees that are off pathways, but are close enough that if a dog kind of starts running through it, you know, who knows? I just don't want to take any risks. It's probably better to take these things down than to let them lean up there. Third, I don't know if everybody's been down there, one of the metal poles holding up the gate has rusted through and fell over.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So right now, one of the access gates can't close. They basically just have a temporary crowd control fencing up there to prevent access, but obviously it could be easily moved. So that'll be the third thing. But I just want to double check if there's anything else they would like to see immediately addressed in terms of safety. And if not, we can move on. All right, so I'll get that letter out and I will send it to, I'm going to have, just because we don't really have authority to send letters to elected officials at this point, that's why I was going to have Scott and Kevin DiMarzio send it on our behalf to DCR with CCing Allison Sullivan and John Keenan.
Good.
Does that make sense?
Now, circling back to the first point, the erosion by the big rock, is that an environmental concern too, where that you're getting siltation into the water, which is potentially getting over to finding its way to Beaver Brook?
Okay, that's a great
So
point.
I don't know if might want to let conservation know.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I will, we can notify that as well. That's a great point. Any other, the fourth one was the poison ivy. As you're walking along the spillway, over the spillway, the southern edge of the pond, as you start to make the turn, there's that giant rock there. We need to start naming these things so we can start to have a reference point, by the way. Off on the left in the grass during the summer, it's all poison ivy, and then you see the vines crawling up the rocks
Yep.
as well. It's starting to get really dominant, so I'll ask them to take it down, or at least treat it so they can start getting, otherwise the whole rock will be covered in
Yep.
by the end of the year. But were there any other park conditions we want to discuss, or? And I'll certainly open it up to anybody in attendance who'd like to as well. Okay. Then let's talk about the master plan that we currently have. And again, the kind of timeline that I would like to do is, I mean, I think we're there, basically. I think, that we're talking about the same things we've been talking about for a while.
Yeah.
We seem to have hit the right notes. So I'd like to, basically after this meeting, schedule a presentation with the Board of Selectmen after town meeting, present this to them, see if they have any thoughts or an impact, and then have one last meeting to finalize it, approve it, finish business, close up shop. That's kind of my thought process. And then obviously the next step would be to create the Friends group to kind of take things and run from here. So the way we left it all those months ago was we had a few key goals: improve public safety, focus on visitor services, embrace active opportunities, protect environmental benefits, and prepare short and long-term capital needs. Needs from a public safety standpoint were to keep the dam shoreline cleared. That's something that we're going to have to retackle again as over the past 2 or 3 years since we've had that big cleanup.
Yeah, there's a lot of junk that's in that little area right where the dam, hits Beaver Brook. A lot of stuff is kind of falling in there.
Yep.
Starting to block things.
Yeah.
Are we gonna plan on doing another cleanup?
I'd like to. I haven't seen any word on whether DCR is doing kind of their,
Yeah, I'm sure they're not. They're probably playing it by ear with COVID still.
yeah. So we can just plan our own for
Yeah.
that. I think 3 years ago we did it on election day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to do the same thing again. I think the thinking at that time was people are in town anyway. That even if you're running for office, you have a couple hours where maybe you can step away and come do this or something. So we can move forward with that if you guys think that makes sense.
What's the date of town elections?
The 30th. It's the
Oh,
last
okay.
Saturday
Yeah,
in
okay.
April.
Yeah, because there's a month to get the notice out there.
Yeah. And again, I would focus on that heavily traveled way south of the pond. On the southern side of the pond, you're starting to see some of the trees and brushes close in on the walking trail, kind of make it a little bit narrower.
When we did it the last time, 3 years ago, did you go before the board to ask for permission to cut the?
Yep.
Okay.
And that was one of the things I was going to ask, is if we can be put on the next meeting agenda.
Which would be the, I think the 12th?
Yeah.
It'll be on the agenda.
Yeah, and then that way we can bring a small plan, figure out what the extent of work we can do is. For example, one of the main benches where the campground area is, with the grills, there's a bench there, and it now looks directly at some pine trees because they've grown up and haven't been cut down. So, but they're probably 4 inches in diameter at this point. It's not like you can just snip them.
Yeah.
So it's like, should we remove these, or just do we move the bench at this point? I mean, we can cut down the trees, but I don't know if that's the best stewardship move.
Are they invasive trees? Are they invasive trees?
I mean, that would be nice if they were. So yeah, we can plan cleanup 4:30 and focus on that spillway, focus on the cleaning along the berm, the entranceway. I think last time we planted flowers at the guard shack. There's a ton of just cut up trees all along the pathways, but I just don't know if
Yeah.
this will be the thing to tackle them.
Where that bench is, it's not, there's no wetland over there, so.
Yeah. But it's close, how close to the shore can we alter things?
Depends what you're doing.
Yeah. It's covered under the Vista
Yeah.
exemption, but, you know, again, it's a 4-inch pine tree. It's almost mature at this point, so. All right, so public safety needs, keeping the dam shoreline cleared. We had heard from actually the couple of rangers that they liked it because they realized they could actually see the far shoreline now. It helped their field of vision, so it's something to keep moving forward. Second was improved trail marking system. Had a conversation with the fire chief, and my thought after that was, I think initially we had talked about maybe on the east side of the pond, starting there and just putting some better trail markings, marking some of the little side trails that go down towards the water. But it makes me think that, would it be better to address the trouble spots, which are over closer to the power lines, where that's where people tend to get lost more? Mm-hmm. And then you could also have the fire department maybe helping set some of it up. Mm-hmm. So maybe we can address or talk to the fire department, see if there's particular areas where people tend to get lost or disoriented, and put some signs, at least say, you know, pond this way, or, you know, Chestnut Street this way, or something that gives some sort of direction, and then move on from there. We also talked about improved signage on ATV and hunting bans, because right now I don't think there are any signs still up there reminding people that they can't be doing this.
No, I mean, if they're there, they're probably old and faded, or.
Yeah. As well as advocating for a more regular ranger presence. As we know, it's very limited how often a ranger is there on site,
Yep.
even during the busy season. So that needs to be an advocacy point, especially there have been occasional issues down there. So the more often we have a ranger on site, the more, I think the better off everybody. I think the police would actually support that too. They would really like to see that, to be honest. Moving to a better visitor experience. Obviously, one thing we want to advocate for are new bathroom facilities, additional ranger hours, continued trail maintenance, updated print and digital maps. This brings us to an interesting point. The maps continue to have trails that go off that aren't part of the park. And you weren't the person, were you? All right. Why don't you tell me the story about this? Can you introduce yourself?
Do I have to be on camera?
We'll keep the camera over this way, but you do have to introduce yourself and for the public record.
Sure. Jamie Haysbrook. I'm one of the neighbors on General Sullivan Way. There's a couple paths still on the trail map that go directly into some of our backyards. And there are some questionable people that come out in the middle of the night. Most of us, we've got trail cameras on the park, but people party back there in the middle of the night. They stumble through our backyards, and it would be great if we can kind of protect the private properties that are over there.
Yeah. So the easement there, it's an old easement, and it's been there for decades and decades. So I think it's been there before it was a state park. So I don't know how it's impacted now that the land is also developed. It's now a subdevelopment.
And I have an update on that as well. So the only easement that goes directly into the park, it's a town easement solely for the purpose of maintaining a detention pond. Nothing that has anything to do with going into the park. It's not on any of our PNS or, you know, when we all purchased our houses over there, there's nothing on any of our deeds that there's any easement at all.
Okay. So, I mean, the detention pond's the one that services that was just built a couple of years ago, that services,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. So, probably about 100 yards down, there is actually the state park extends out to Hancock Street fully. Like, you know, you can walk into Hancock Street, off Hancock Street, and you are in the state park immediately, and it's a trail that goes all the way down to that main carriage road. But now, I don't know I'd be curious to find out more about how this trail, I don't know if it's a trail, I don't know if it's an easement, I don't know what it was. Do you know what it was originally?
Probably just a trail that was made by people.
Farmers.
Or, yeah.
Yeah. So we need to see if there's something that needs to be unwound. If there is, maybe there's an easement that went to the edge of the property, because there's all sorts of old, I mean, it could be 200 years old for all I know.
Yeah.
Or if it's something that on the next time they print up maps, it's taken off. Or at least put up no trespassing private property. Are those up?
There's one path that has no trespassing, but I think there's another one that goes to one of the neighbors' houses that we often see people walk down and they end up right in the backyard.
Okay. Yeah, because obviously people don't have the right to cross private property to access John L. Sullivan Way. So we need to nip this in the bud. Thank you for coming and bringing it to our attention. We also want to complete the Porecki land taking. This is another, I mean, the shape of this land is something else that goes back 200 years, basically. I've asked the town manager for an update. He didn't have one. They had unwound the pilot taking and we're going to move towards tax title. And then a pandemic happened and things have been very slow in the court system. So I don't know how far it's gotten. And of course, when that happens, we can then also complete the trail around Cleveland Pond. All right, active rec opportunities. One thing we had talked about a lot was the fact that a lot of the interest in this state park seems to be around active recreation opportunities versus passive rec opportunities. So as we know, the mountain bike guys have been out and really done an amazing job keeping the trails open, creating a couple of bike trails, building bridges. So we want to make sure that we support them and what they do. I have emailed the cross-country coach to find out what would need to happen to make it a cross-country trail or track, but.
So while you were talking about that, the one problem that because I go there a lot, is on that east side, that trail that goes up all the way to the, picnic bench where the water is there, it pretty much is always soaked in like 2 or 3 spots, I mean, really wet, where you can't really, you have to kind of have boots on to get through. I don't know, as far as visitor experience goes, but a lot of people kind of stop there, especially if we had like rain the night before or something. It's like the water just sheds down towards the pond in like 3 different places.
Yeah.
And it kind of crosses the trail there and has become a little bit of a brook.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a number of spots where we need to basically regrade, retrench.
It might even need some kind of bridge or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep. Or is it possible just to loop it out through out towards one of the storage sheds and then just do a double loop for the trail?
Yeah, the water just comes from somewheres and goes right down. It's formed its own little brooks after a rainstorm.
Yep. They might not even want to use it, but I was just curious. But, I think we need to also promote it as a canoe kayak launch. I think that was also talked about, that we have the little dock there, but it's getting a little wobbly. Mm-hmm. And we need to upgrade that. And in connection with the cross-country trail is the way that we can establish a regular bike or running race. If the mountain bikers like it, can we do an annual race or something out in the northwest corner or around the whole thing or something? Environmental needs. There was interest in testing water quality. We've had, heard about the weeds growing up, but now the town is sewered. If there is a water quality issue, where's it coming from? What's the origin of it? Is it treatable? Or is it, my goodness, it's probably being fed through Weymouth and Holbrook, so is there anything we can do?
They treated the pond again, I think, in June or July last year.
Did they?
Yeah, because they had to extend their NOI for that.
Was that for algae or was it for other things?
I forget what invasive plants they were.
Okay. When they do that, do they have to provide any information as to where they think the issue is coming from?
No,
No? Okay.
they basically just tell you that after so many treatments, it should basically kill off enough where it can't bloom again.
Okay. I don't know if anybody has a better institutional memory. I feel like there was always water coming over the spillway even in summertime, but it hasn't in the last few years. I don't know if this is just something where we just went through a pretty big drought, or, you know, we're having seen changes in climate patterns, but maybe just it always dried out at, you know, the summer months. But I don't know if the water's just getting too still, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it stop before. Many, many years ago.
Yeah. And at some point we need to talk about the beavers and whether this is how big of an issue this is. You know, in some ways it's habitat. In other ways, is what they're doing going to impact the park in other ways we haven't thought of and cause more problems?
Well, I mean, when we did that walk, I mean, you can see that back corner.
Yeah.
Where do you put a trail?
There's no trail there anymore.
Yeah. In a floating.
And that was what, 3 years ago?
Yeah.
Almost 3 years ago we went out there.
Some short-term goals that we had identified were to formally mark trails and sub-trails on the east side of the pond. That might be adjusted to be more on the west side where people are tending to get lost or disoriented. Push for the acquisition of the Porecki property and then the integration into the park in general so we can complete the trails, update the maps. Create the Friends of Ames Nowell group. This will be the next big thing because you know, we'll find out from Friends of Wampatuck, Friends of Borderland, how do they take their fundraising and stewardship and efforts to actually go out and do things? What type of permissions do they get? How do they work with DCR, essentially? Long-term goals is to, you know, basically mark all the trails and sub-trails on both sides of the pond. I think this could be a fun little thing if you start to get public input. You know, how we want to name it, who do we want to name it? Are there fun little things we can do with it? You know, there are different formations out there that we could, like that big rock that we don't know what to call. Like, you know, is that stepping stone rock because there's little steps that can go up, basically?
I think the Nemba group, I think they name certain trails and stuff like that.
Who does?
I think the mountain biking.
Yep.
I think they do that already.
There's a rock on the east side about halfway out. It's a split rock. So, I mean, in my case, it's called Split Rock. It's very clearly been cleaved in half from ice, but, you know, that way you can at least
Yep.
using the same language.
And you got landmarks when you're hiking. If somebody's over here and you're over there, you can tell them.
Yep. We'd also talked a little bit about establishing some markers for some of the history of the property. There's still foundations out there from when it was hunting lodges, quarries, stone walls obviously still run through the whole thing. So how can we integrate that into it? We want to continue studying putting either a main or a secondary entrance off Chestnut Street. Just because Linwood is still such a small, narrow street, and would it make more sense to have more traffic going towards the other corner of Chestnut, which is wider, less traveled? And you know, the current parking lot goes pretty deep back on that east side, and I don't know if there's a way to connect it through to Chestnut or something eventually, because we'll eventually the park would own all that land. So there's a way to run it out to, or the Porecki property out to Chestnut that way. I don't know. And we also talked about revitalizing the picnic and field areas. They're kept mode and they're not awful, but, you know, they could definitely be a lot better depending on what we want to encourage down there. So now that we've had a couple of years to think about it, is there anything else we'd like to add? Any other needs? Do you have any thoughts?
Is there a way that we can install just doggy little trash bags to help pick up some of the waste?
Yeah.
I don't know if we can put trash cans in the park around the trails, but at least a way that, you know, people can pick up after their pets.
Was there one initially at the entrance?
Before the gate, yeah.
But it probably is worth at least maybe putting a couple others around. Who knows, to get knocked over or something, but I mean, at least
Yep.
try. All right. So if we're good with that, then what I'd like to do is just, again, we'll schedule a meeting with the Board of Selectmen after the town meeting, run this by them, and get their input, and then if they're good with everything, come back afterwards, finalize it, close this out, and ship this off to DCR. Well, we'll meet with DCR, obviously, but I mean, do a formal presentation with DCR, elected officials, everybody else, and move forward. You were also sent basically a more detailed list of capital needs, talking about some of the boardwalks and railings and signs and stuff like that.
Yeah, the boardwalks need attention.
Oh, I took a walk, and someone had mentioned that there was a problem with one road, but I couldn't find it. I found the boardwalk, I didn't find the problem. Do you remember?
I know the one closest to the big rock, I'll call it. Some of the top rails were bowed up, and I think one of them was completely gone. I don't know if somebody fixed it.
All right, so I think I was originally told.
Yeah, it'd be the one that was over right there. I'm sorry, no. The one that's over here.
Let me pull up the trail map. Again, why we need to naming conventions. Thought it was between like markers 24 and 26 or something like that. W24, 26.
Yeah, right down there.
Okay, so this one.
Yep.
Yeah. So that boardwalk.
Yeah.
There. Yeah, I took a walk on that. Things are bowed.
Yep.
Some of the planks are, chipped and starting to peel out. It wasn't like rickety and ready to fall over, but I mean, definitely it's, showing its age.
Someone does repair that every once in a while. You see a new piece of wood.
I think the mountain biking.
Mountain bikers,
Yeah.
they haul the stuff in. It's incredible what they do.
And I haven't been out to the other one, the one that goes to nowhere.
Yeah.
The one
Oh, right.
right there.
Yeah.
Last time I was out there was probably right after we started this
Yeah.
board, and that one was in rough shape back then, so I don't know what it looks like now.
So the question is that this one here, the one goes from 14 to 16, basically everything's grown up around it. What can be done with that, if anything, or do we just leave it? I mean, otherwise you're hiking in the marsh, in the mush to cut things down, which I
Yep.
know is probably you should, but I think initially the boardwalk probably was built with a view up to the water, but you can't see the water anymore, especially in the summertime. But everything else is starting to grow up and over the boardwalk sign, so I imagine we need to do something to kind of hack it back a bit. Excuse me. Yeah, so I sent you the list of kind of the little needs. Please feel free to send stuff along we can add to it. There's a number of things up here, on here, that we can work on. And I think those are the big things for now. All right, so next on the agenda was next steps, including possible cleanup. We mentioned on the 30th, we'll see what DCR is doing, anything officially. We'll come before your board in mid-April to get permissions and blessings. But the focus will be on the welcoming area, the paths down to the pond side, and then that path that runs along top of the berm, basically clearing that out, spillway, kind of basically what we did last time.
Yeah. I think last time, didn't DCR bring a chipper and some chainsaws, I think?
Yep.
Yeah.
They had started that, and then the chipper broke halfway through it,
Right.
but we got some stuff done.
Yeah.
But is there anything else you would want to do for that cleanup day, or tackle or focus on? If so,
If the gate maybe, I don't know what that takes to fix, if they just need to set a pole or...
Yeah, I mean,
Basically, the pole either got run over or rotted out, I'm not too
it's
sure.
right at the bottom,
Yeah.
so either got
So
hit
probably got-
or,
It's probably rotted out and got hit.
but probably have to dig out the whole concrete situation.
It
All
looks
right.
like, it's a lolly column or something, right?
And then after that, the big thing is going to be forming the Friends group. I haven't set up a nonprofit from scratch. I don't know if anybody has.
I haven't.
So, a couple things going to have to be who's going to be in that first group that kind of creates it and nurtures it and grows it. The structure, who's going to be on it. I mean, I think it should be obviously more than just 4 people sitting here.
Yeah.
How much we want to have an outside presence, considering the city of Brockton is right next door and connects to it. Do we want to have dedicated seats to certain groups or, advocates like, the mountain bike folks, considering how much time and effort they put into it. Those are some things to think of as we move forward, so that we can basically hand off something to whoever this group is. Residents, of course, we want people who live around the park. So put some thought into that, and the next time we meet, we can finalize
So
that.
would it be like a board?
Yeah, so it would be,
So how many people are you thinking to start?
9, 10, 11. I mean, just because people start to drift away, but
Yeah.
9, 10, 11. So you have a couple members from this board, designated person from the Board of Selectmen or open space or conservation, or however they want to handle it. And you have a couple representatives from stewardship advocacy groups, which is, mountain bike folks or something else. And then general public. And then obviously this isn't a town board, this is a private nonprofit. And they set their rules and they can figure out the membership and who's a part of it, and they can go do fundraising and everything else. But yeah, they take it from there. That's one of the reasons, again, 2 years ago, Friends of Borderland had offered to sit down and kind of chat with us about how they run things.
Yeah, I remember
And so I've reached back out to say, hey, sorry about the delay, but can we take you up on that offer? At some point, we'll go, maybe I'll look into go into the next Friends of Wampatuck board meeting, and again, introduce ourselves and say, how do you guys do it, and how do you work? And everything I've been told is that they wouldn't see us as a threat or a competitor. That it's more, they see this more the merrier.
Yep, sister organization.
Yeah, because it's they wouldn't see it as a zero-sum thing, or if we're advocating for Ames Nowell, that means less for Wampatuck. They don't see it that way necessarily. All right. So those are some of the things to think about for our next meeting. Anything else we want to discuss at this time? All right. Let's set a date for our next meeting while everybody's actually here. So I'm hoping maybe we can get on either probably the 18th, the agenda on the 18th for the Board of Selectmen, or maybe we should wait till after town meeting, I don't know. Tell you what, let's meet on, when's school vacation?
The 18th, I think? 18th to the 22nd?
Does that sound right?
Yeah, that's the
That's
weekend for
Easter. Easter, yeah.
School vacation, right?
Kids are out of school. But, so you're talking about April, right?
Yeah, so how about April 14th?
Okay. I think that works for me. I think I'm not going to be around from the 22nd on for a little bit.
Okay. And then we'll finalize any details for a cleanup on the 30th. And then we'll go from there about when the selectmen would like to have us in to chat. And then a meeting after that, and we can be done. Sound like a plan?
Okay.
Should we get something to the selectmen so they can make an announcement at their next meeting for the cleanup?
Yep, I think that's a good idea too.
We can put something on the Abington Recycles page too. Environmental.
Certainly encourage you to invite your neighbors, get them interested and involved. You know, this all started because we want to make sure that this is a fun-friendly place to go, and people haven't been advocating for it. And what we've learned is that if it's certainly a squeaky wheel situation with DCR, that whatever the immediate need is or whatever the squeaking is, that's what gets the attention. So hopefully this will be an ongoing thing. But if there's nothing else, I will take a motion. Oh,
You want me to get you on the next,
yes,
the next
next.
Concom meeting agenda?
Oh, I did look at a date.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, 12th of April.
Okay. All right. Something else? I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Or any other discussion? All right. We are adjourned.